Hey there, nice to have you with us again. It's your host, Jeff, Journeys with Jeff. And I want to shout out to all my friends and neighbors at the Court of St. James in West Hartford. Hi, you guys. I love you. We have a great guest tonight. Very, very interesting, fascinating story. Account of a gentleman named Shawn Flynn. Shawn is an Amazon best-selling author. He wrote a book some few years ago called The Kitty Who Rescued Me After I Rescued Him. And we're going to talk to Shawn about his journey and how he came to rescue a cat and get rescued himself. Shawn.
Hey Jeff, thanks for having me on your program.
Pleasure. Good to see you. Let's start the journey off. Where are you from? Where were you born?
I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. I moved to Connecticut back in the mid-90s when I was recruited by one of the Hartford insurance companies. I've worked in and out of the insurance industry most of my adult career. I decided to write a book a few years back. As you mentioned, it's a real nice story, and it details the cat that I met when I moved to the house that I currently live in.
Okay, well, before we jump to that, I want to just back up a little bit. You were born and raised in Philadelphia.
Sure, yeah. Originally from Philadelphia.
Where were you go to college?
I went to college in Western Pennsylvania at a school called Slippery Rock University.
Okay, and you got your degree in?
I got a bachelor's degree in psychology.
So you got a bachelor's degree in psychology. What brought you here to the Hartford area?
Well, as I mentioned, I was recruited by one of the Hartford insurance companies back in the mid-90s.
To do what?
To do market research. And after I got my bachelor's degree from Slippery Rock, I got my master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from Westchester University, a school right outside of Philadelphia. And worked for several years for some companies, consulting firms, and some other companies in the Philadelphia area. And then I was recruited by one of the Hartford insurance companies to move up here and to do market research. And I've worked in and out of the insurance industry most of my adult life.
Did you find that, was it a rewarding career for you?
Like everything, there are pluses and minuses. But yeah, there's certainly, there were some great things about working for insurance companies and in the insurance industry.
For instance, what were some of the positive things?
Pay's not bad. Pay and benefits, things like that. Certainly, working environment, things like that. But like everything, it's got its pluses and minuses.
Oh, what kind of insurance were you involved in? Life insurance or real estate insurance?
Life insurance, health insurance, things like that.
Yeah. And so did your degree in psychology, was it you able to employ that in your job?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, as I mentioned, I did market research. So I used statistical tools to analyze data. I used to write questionnaires and administer questionnaires, things like that.
I see. Okay. And so you lived in Hartford or?
Well, when I first moved to Connecticut, I lived in Farmington for a couple of years. And after that, I lived in southern Connecticut. I worked for Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield in North Haven for a number of years. So I moved to southern Connecticut and lived in Hamden. As I mentioned, I was working in North Haven, so real close. And about 13 years ago, I moved to Enfield, where I live now.
I see. You've been all over this part of the state. Yeah. What area did you enjoy the most?
Well, like every place, places have their pluses and minuses. When I lived in Hamden, I had an apartment, so I didn't have, the kinds of upkeep that people have when they own a house like I do now. It was more of a kind of like an urban type area. I lived real close to New Haven. Now where I live in Enfield, it's very country-ish. I mean, I have tobacco tractors driving by my house this time of year because they're harvesting the tobacco in the local tobacco fields.
This is in Enfield?
Yes.
So you're out there kind of in rural?
Yeah, in
Really?
fact, Enfield's the most rural place I've ever lived.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel isolated, or do you like it?
If I was in my 20s or early 30s, I might, but at this stage of the game, I really enjoy it.
Well, you're 20 minutes away from Springfield, 20 minutes away from Hartford, and have you been to the new casino?
I have not.
Well, okay, so you did that that was your profession. You were a professional man, and you grew up, and you were a good boy, and you got your college degree. What happened? At what point in your life did you decide to write a book?
Well, when I moved to the house that I currently live in, I met Kitty, who is the star of my book. I actually met him 2 months before I moved into that house.
And this is Kitty here.
He sure is. Yep, he's on the front cover of my book. Excuse me. I actually met him 2 months before I moved into my house when I was walking through the backyard with the realtor. This big bushy orange cat came over, rubbed up against my leg. He was real friendly. I just thought he was a neighbor's cat. I didn't think much of it. I moved into that house 2 months later. I moved in on a Saturday morning. I got home from work that first Monday night at 5:30, and he was sitting on the front step like he was waiting for me to get home. And the story details how we met. We obviously met under unique circumstances, how our relationship developed over the course of several months, how he stole my heart, and how I fell in love with him.
Oh, how did he steal your heart? Just
It's a great cat. I mean, every night when I got home from work, he'd be sitting on the front step waiting for me to get home. I would, I moved to my home in June, so it was during the summer, the warm months. I just called him Kitty. I thought he was just a cat. I thought he was a neighbor's cat or something. I didn't think much of it. It became clear after, a couple of months that he was a stray cat. I mean, he wasn't a feral cat. He had clearly been someone's pet at some point. But it had become clear that he was a stray cat and didn't have any place to live. So, but I would come home from work and I'd be hanging out on the back porch, or, on weekends I would be doing yard work in the backyard, and he would just come over and hang out with me. And just half the time I didn't even know he was there. He'd just lay down in the grass and watch me. And, I would look over, and all of a sudden I'd see him sitting there, and I'd say, "Hey, Kitty." And he was just a cat. I called him Kitty.
Well, how long was it after you initially saw him, the first time you saw him, and you actually had him, adopted him, or he came in? Did he lived in your house?
It was probably a couple of months. That fall, when it started getting cool out, I put one of those swinging two-way pet doors so he could have a place to sleep in the garage. I put a big pillow in the corner of the garage. I'd been feeding him on the back porch with a bowl of water all summer. And that fall, I installed the swinging two-way pet door, put the pillow and the bowl of water and the bowl of food in the corner, and every morning when I left for work, he would be lying on his pillow. So he obviously had he adopted me. He decided he wanted to live with me. I made this nice little home for him, and he would be, laying on his pillow every morning. So he obviously slept there all night.
Did you feed him?
Absolutely. I started feeding him a couple of days after I met him.
Well, what did you do? How did you feed him?
Just,
put it outside your house?
Cat crunchies, on the back porch. Cat crunchies, next to a bowl of water.
And once he moved into the garage, how did you feed him?
Same thing,
Same
cat
way?
crunchies, yep.
And is that the way it stayed?
For a while anyway. That fall, when it really started getting cold out, late fall, he looked up at me one morning with those pretty big green eyes when I was leaving for work, and he said, "Dude, I'm so cold out here, just let me in." And I told him I would. So that Saturday, I borrowed a cat carrier from one of my friends at work, and that Saturday I took him to the groomer, got him cleaned up. He was all matted because he had been living outside for a few years, and according to my next door neighbor, he had been living in my backyard for 2 or 3 years. So he was all matted. I got him cleaned up. I got all the fleas and ticks taken off him. I got him, his shots and, his vaccinations. And when I brought him home that Saturday afternoon, he became an indoor cat, something that he had been trying to become for months.
How did you get him to get into that carrier?
I just put him in. Just opened them up and put them in.
So in the few months you guys must have built up some sort of a trust for each other.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, as I mentioned, Jeff, he wasn't a feral cat. He had clearly been someone's pet. So he had contact with humans. And, he didn't have a problem with it. I mean, he used to sit on my lap when I hung out on the back porch after work in the evening. He would come over, jump up on my lap, and make himself at home.
Wow. Did you ever have any pets when you were a little boy?
I did. We had family dogs when I was a kid living with my family.
Yeah.
But we never had cats. So I hadn't had a lot of experience with cats until I met Kitty.
Right. And did you, the cat came and lived with you, and at what point, I don't want to get too far deep into the book. I want the viewers to. It sounds. I mean, already I can't wait to get it and read it. But in what way can you give us a little hint? How did he rescue you back?
Well, of course, it's the kitty who rescued me after I rescued him. A story about me and my cats, focusing on the first cat I rescued, which is him, Kitty on the front cover, the positive impact he had on me, and how having him in my life helped me through a difficult time.
And you said cats. There were other cats afterwards?
I've rescued numerous cats since I first rescued Kitty.
Have?
He was the one that started it all.
He started it, and so where did you go to? Did you go to a cat? This one was just serendipitous.
Yep.
In your backyard. How did you get the other cats?
Well, that's the way I rescued all my other cats as well. I rescued a cat who I named Squeakers. I met him at an apartment complex. He had clearly been abandoned. I saw him several times over the course of about 3 weeks. He was scared. Once I saw him standing in front of an apartment door crying like he was asking to be let in, and the apartment was vacant. No one lived there. So I'm guessing that he had been abandoned. And unfortunately, people, some irresponsible people move into a new living arrangement like an apartment. They think, oh, it's going to be great to get a cute little kitten. A year or two later, their apartment or their living situation changes, and their new living arrangement doesn't allow for pets. And they just open the door when they move and kick the cat out to fend for itself. That's how I met Squeakers. I met him at an apartment complex. My other cat, Gypsy, I met him at an apartment complex too. I met him, he was eating out of a dumpster. He was real friendly, came over, wanted me to pet him and stuff. And I'd seen him several times. He had clearly been abandoned. He was all skinny, eating out of a dumpster. And my other cat, Gerline, she was actually born in my garage. A feral cat snuck into my garage one day and had 3 kittens. And she was the surviving kitten.
My guess is that very few people have had even one, whether it's a cat or a dog or any animal, that has just kind of fallen into their lives, and in such a profound way as yours.
Yeah.
You've got a number of them. That your backyard, the dumpster, the apartment complex.
Yep.
Do you think have you ever wondered, is there something? How are you a magnet for these cats? What's going on?
Having Kitty in my life and developing the relationship that I have with him, made me develop a real soft spot in my heart for stray and abandoned cats.
But do you think that somehow psychically that they know it? Do you think they know it, or they just come into your life?
Well,
I
can say that my experiences with Kitty could be considered spiritual. Absolutely. He touched my heart more than most humans have. So.
Yeah, yeah. And what were some of the? Can you think of one or two of the most important lessons that you've learned as you've been coming involved with these cats? What have you learned from them? What have they taught you?
Kitty most importantly, but my other cats as well have helped me to really develop an appreciation for the value of relationships. The value of relationships and that they have to be nurtured and cultivated.
And what are some of the, what would you say are some of the characteristics of a good, loving relationship? Whether it's with two people or a person and another animal or whatever it is.
Unconditional love. Yeah, Kitty helped me to, really develop an appreciation for unconditional love.
Wow, wow. And the other cats, the same. You've developed that bond with them too.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Wow. Do you still work? Are you still at in the insurance company?
No. I decided to pursue my writing full time. So that's what I do. I promote my book. I'm currently working on my next book, and I actually go to a lot of different places. I do stuff every week to promote my book.
Well, this book, this one, The Kitty Who Rescued Me After I Rescued Him, that's your first book?
It is.
And so you're working on...
I'm working on my next one right now, yep.
Do they have to do with cats?
Absolutely.
They do.
That's my genre.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you certainly have no shortage of... You got a lot of them...
I have a ton of great stories.
Now, these other cats that you adopted, or that adopted you, whichever way you want to think of it, was it any of them like two at a time, or was it one at a time, and then you got?
It was always one at a time.
Yeah,
one at a time. Yeah.
And there's one. Do you have one now currently?
Oh, I have several cats. Yeah, I live with several cats.
Oh,
right
now it's gotten to several cats.
Well, yeah, I've had as many as 4 at one time.
Oh wow!
So.
Wow! And all of these, so you have several. The ones you have now, did you get them through the just meet them accidentally, or do you go to a cat shelter or kitty rescue or something?
All of my cats have been rescued from living outdoors, with the exception of the one who was born in my garage. But you could actually say I rescued her as well. And more recently, about 9 or so months ago, I rescued. I didn't actually rescue the cat, but she is a rescue cat. One of my cat rescue colleagues, where I live in Enfield, dug her and her siblings out from underneath someone's porch. A stray cat had kittens underneath someone's porch. And, they were full of fleas and ticks and stuff like that, and they weren't being, fed properly, obviously. So she rescued them and put the cats up for adoption, got them medical treatment and stuff like that. And I became aware of this one cat that needed a home, so I went ahead and said, yeah, I'll go ahead and take her. She can come home and live with me.
Have you heard of Kitty's Kitty Corner?
I have.
In Granby?
Yep, I have.
I had a guest on, I forget how, it's been earlier this year, Marley Rubenstein.
Okay.
She works at the Kitty Corner in Granby.
That's great.
And she gets cats. Some of the sicker ones she'll take home and give them medication and nurse them back to health.
That's great.
And then bring them back to the Kitty Corner so they can be adopted. So you have heard of that?
I have, yep.
Any involvement with them, or?
I haven't done anything with them, but I have met people who have had experiences with that cat rescue group.
Yeah.
So the group that I primarily do things with is the Enfield Community Cat Project in Enfield. I actually help them with some of their marketing and promotional activities, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where I got the cat that I was sharing the story with you earlier about getting, about 9 months ago, I found out that she was available, and she was 8 weeks old, and she was the perfect age, and she needed a home, so I went ahead and told my friend Jennifer that I'd go ahead and take her.
It seems like, and even as I travel around, sometimes you'll see different neighborhoods in different places, cats running around. It seems like there's the people. Is it common for people to just abandon cats, or do cats just take off and run away, or?
Unfortunately, I think pet abandonment, but specifically cat abandonment, is, it's a lot of people do it. I mean, I recall hearing on the news back during the height of the recent financial crisis, during the recession, I remember seeing a story that pet abandonment was at an all-time high because people couldn't take care of couldn't afford to take care of their cats and dogs anymore.
What are the chances? How, in terms of there's a difference between, like you were saying, you got a cat who you could tell was formerly owned, versus a feral cat who's basically still wild.
Correct.
What are the chances of a feral cat? Are there any accounts of feral cats being adopted and subsequently domesticated, or do they have that?
I have heard stories of that, but I think it's pretty rare. I mean, really rare. When a feral cat reaches a certain age, they pretty much can't be domesticated at that point. However, I have heard stories about feral cats in later years, when they're nearing the end of their life, having developed a relationship with a human where they might eat on the human's back porch or something like that. And, there comes a point in their life when they know they're sick, they're elderly, and they might allow a human to interact with them more than they might have earlier in their life.
Yeah, and I know from my own experience too. There are some neighborhoods I've lived in where there's feral cats around, and some of the neighbors that the feral cats get to know.
Yep.
They have their territory.
Sure.
And certain residents, they'll leave out food out, and they won't try to make friends with them. As a matter of fact, I remember where I lived in New Britain, near my house where I lived, there was a big stretch of woods, and at the beginning of them there was a big rock, huge rock, big boulder, and I would go there. I saw some feral cats there, and I would go there quite often, several times a week. And I would go over, I would get out of my car, and I would go over to the rock, and I would leave some food, some dry, big fistful of dry cat food on the rock. And there was this one particular gray feral cat who I got to be as friendly with as you can. I mean, this cat would actually, unlike the other cats, this cat would let me get within about 10 feet of it.
Yeah.
I could walk up and get about 10 feet.
And if you got a little close, it would run, right?
Yes. But the other ones were very skittish. I mean, they just see you and they take off. But this one particular cat, I guess he would be somewhere and he would see me put the food down, and then I'd take a few steps back, and he or she would come and jump up on the rock, and would just start eating, and I'd take a couple of steps toward it, and it would just, it was probably watching me out of the corner of its eye.
Sure.
But he didn't flinch. He kept on eating, but if I took one step too close, he'd take off. So it's the feral cats. The feral cats, they know they have their territory.
Sure.
And they know where to get their food.
Absolutely. I have several feral cats that live in my backyard that I've been feeding for years. So they're totally wild, totally feral. like the cats that you've had experiences with, some of them seem to be more skittish than others. One of them, in fact, has actually let me pet it. Now, let me pet it on the back of the head, and then I went to pet it a second time, gave me a little hiss, let me know, stop petting, stop petting me. So,
Wow.
but yeah, I have a cat I call Outdoor Girline because she looks like my indoor Girline, all black cat, and I've been feeding her for 10 years on the back porch. That's almost unheard of for a feral cat with no, I mean, while she is getting fed, she isn't eating as well as she could be if she was living inside.
Yeah.
In addition, some of her meals, I mean, other cats might eat the food before she gets to it during the day, but she's never had medical care, never been taken to the vet, and it's almost unheard of that she's lasted for over 10 years.
Let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
Time is running out here.
Sure.
What is it about we say we're the result of the experiences that we had. What is it in your life as a young child, perhaps, or what is it that where you accumulated or got the qualities of being able to take in an animal and show it love and care and concern? What is it in your life that happened that made that the case?
Well, as a kid living with my family, we always had family dogs. So certainly my parents instilled in me, the value of having pets and caring for pets and things like that. So I've always loved animals. I love all animals. In fact, one summer I raised 5 baby skunks when their mother had been hit by a car in front of the house. So.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, just in case some of the viewers might want to know how they can get in touch with you if they have a question or if they want to know more about your book.
Sure.
Could you tell us what you have a Facebook page?
I do. For all the cat lovers out there, if they'd like to reach out to me on Facebook, my screen name is Shawn Flynn. I actually have 2 Facebook pages. Shawn Flynn, and my avatar is me with a black and white cat. My other one is ShawnFlynn.author. That's my author page. Certainly reach out to me on either Facebook page. They can send me an email at ShawnPFlynn@yahoo.com. And if anyone wants to pick up my book, they can get it from certainly Amazon.com. BarnesandNoble.com. It's actually available from most book retailers worldwide. It's obviously available as a paperback, but it can also be downloaded from Amazon for Kindle readers, and it's available from BarnesandNoble.com for Nook readers.
Okay, thank you, Shawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're very welcome, folks. If you want to read a good book that's really very, very touching, check out what Shawn has written, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.